Hello, everyone. Keith Cirelli again with part 3 of how they manipulate your mind. I want to point out a few things before we start here. The first one is, in part 2, as I went down the entire left side, something I realized after the fact, and I'm just trying to compensate for it now, be honest with you, without having to redo the whole thing, is there's text. Let me just show you really quick that I did not read. I was telling you because I've left the link in the description of these videos for you to go to the web version of this here. This link may not always be up. And if it's not, and you don't have access to this where I'm telling you to come and read all this stuff that's in here, and I was scrolling through really fast, probably making it really challenging for people to see. Excuse me. In the beginning here, I'm going to take a few minutes and go through the left side and just scroll and pause through all of the left side so that the text that's in each one of these that I did not read is available in 1080p in the video. In the off chance, and it's possible that at some point down the road, that link won't be available anymore for whatever reason. So I want this content to be in the video, even if it's nothing more than the beginning part of part 3. There's the text for all the left side. So wanted to point that out. I'm going to do that first. I failed to read this as well. I just started with the left side. So I'm going to take a minute after I do that to read this, and then we'll start with the second side and finish up that way. And I also wanted to point out again that there's a reason that I'm doing this that ties into this. And when you understand what it is that the people that work for these organizations, Tavistock, Frankfurt School, Hoover Institute, these think tanks that use social engineering, and then they use all of this to manipulate the human herd, use all of these mechanisms and more to influence your mind using fear and all of these things. And then they use basically these tactics and more to influence what you think. So here they're telling you what they intend to do to you. Mold your mind, your tastes, your ideas. Aren't those tied to your thoughts? And this presentation is on thoughts, opinions, beliefs, perceptions, and knowledge. And this book is sitting here telling you that these men that run this part of society is working on your mind, trying to mold and form your tastes and your ideas. They're telling you it's going to be done by men you've never heard of. And when you understand who works for these think tanks, ooh, yeah, that raises some questions. They refer to themselves as our invisible governors. And to govern, think about it. To govern means to control, to rule. The autonomy of your mind, the autonomy of your perception, really. So when you look at the world that you see and all the layers of it, the clown world, the cringeworthy, the blatantly offensive, the corrupt, the immoral, the deception, the lies, the this, that, and the other, when you see it all, it's like, oh boy. Well, here's the thing. These are the people writing the books that tell you what they're intending to do to you. And then they use, basically, this is somewhat of a representation of the beast system, if you will, kind of loosely put, controlling, and they use this to do it to you. And a lot of it is using these psychological frameworks or strategies or techniques that you're not aware of, and they're doing it to your face. They're capitalizing on your lack of awareness of yourself. They're capitalizing on your lack of awareness of your own psychology and these types of things. So it would behoove you to take the time to at least be versed somewhat lower than the surface level so that you can begin to have the eyes to see. Now, I'm doing this for the benefit of all that will see it. But my hopes is that this will find its way in front of the younger millennials and the Z gens that need this as a foundation. Those who are capable, those who are meant to find it will those who are not. That's the only thing I can conclude. So I'm doing this for the benefit of others. And I'm hoping that it's going to give you enough of an understanding and a foundation. I'm hoping that you're going to put in the time to read the material where I'm not reading it to you and show that you actually have an interest in understanding how you operate, how they operate, so that you can navigate this reality without them Pied Pipering you, without them pulling your strings, without them, quote unquote, devouring you. Okay, so the first order of business is just going to take a few minutes. I'm going to click through this and I'm going to scroll and pause so that you can stop the video and read it for yourself. Okay, scroll, pause. And I'm going to actually just sit here in silence and do this. There's no reason for me to narrate this. Pause it, read it. Whoa, something's happening here. Hold on a minute. There we go. Yeah. For some reason, that one wasn't showing up for a minute. Okay. So that covers making sure that that content is at least in this video. And moving forward, when I read one of these, I will read it and then I will scroll before I go on to the next one so that all the information is contained within the video itself rather than dependent upon an external link that could go down at some point in the future. A week, a month, 6 months, who knows? Okay. The manipulation of human thought influences and shapes perceptions, opinions, and alters beliefs. Manipulating human thought is a complex process that involves influencing various aspects of cognition, including thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and perceptions. Understanding these elements and how they interplay is crucial in comprehending the techniques used to shape and control human thinking. Manipulation of human thought is a complex and multifaceted effort that can be executed in various ways that I've shown you in other tabs here, from subtle to overt techniques, each chosen based off of the specific objectives of the manipulator. Subtle manipulation operates under the radar, hence the word subtle, using indirect or hidden methods to influence people's thinking and behavior. And what comes to mind is subliminals, and there are certain movies that were created by Disney or those Hollywood types that have innuendo, sexual things kind of in the background, a puff of smoke, comes out to be sex. And in certain Disney movies, there was this one little woman in the Disney thing where her dress looked like a penis, the way it was shaped. So various subtle forms of influence, innuendo, hell, even double entendres can do it. But this form of manipulation is typically harder to detect and can be as simple as someone using suggestive language, controlling information available to others, or employing psychological tactics like playing on emotions. And they do that all the time. Overt manipulation is much more direct and obvious. In your face, no holds barred. What are you going to do about it? Approach. And when you think about it, think of the lockdowns, think of the COVID propaganda, think of the vaccine propaganda. Hell, who was that guy in New York, I think it was, who did the burger and fries? Get a burger. Like, we're talking overt. That was really cringeworthy. But overt intentions to manipulate or influence public opinion to advance a particular agenda. And that's exactly what we saw with COVID. That's exactly what we saw with Corona, with the lockdowns, with the vaccines, with all of it. So there should be fairly fresh frames of reference in everyone's head for the types of things that I'm trying to point out. So consider the more aggressive tactics like propaganda, blatant persuasion, and even coercion. Overt manipulation is easier to recognize and can be quite effective, especially in situations where the manipulator holds some form of power or authority. And I should also add in there some form of power, knowledge, or authority over others. That thing about knowledge that the masses do not possess, that is where we collectively are dependent, because we don't know. They're in quote unquote positions of authority, but they're not. They're in positions of governance that provide them access to information that the rest of us don't have. That doesn't make them our authority ever at all. But I digress. Both methods aim to steer unaware and dependent people towards specific outcomes. And the dependency is a dependence for knowledge or information that we do not possess. That makes us vulnerable to the psychopathic intentions of the lying split-tongued demons that we call politicians, the people in the media, and an awful lot of the alternative media as well. Alex Jones would be a perfect example of that. Yet Those who are just waking up have yet to figure that out, but hopefully they will. Hopefully, those who are watching him, he's just a phase in their awakening journey. The choice between subtle or overt manipulation often depends on the context and the manipulator's assessment of what will be the most effective in a given situation. Clearly, these methods work because they generally target the subconscious and unconscious aspects of the human psychology, manipulating emotional responses, biases, and automatic behaviors because they know how you operate. They understand you in a way that you do not yet understand yourself. And this knowledge is not unattainable. It's just a matter of taking the time to know thyself. And I have a whole series of videos kind of putting together a model or a framework for everybody of the way in which you must know thyself in this reality to not be consumed and devoured by all of this type of stuff, by all of this type of stuff. And yeah, somehow I don't get people coming to me wanting to know more. It's kind of strange when I really think about it. So while some of these techniques are overt, many operate below the level of conscious awareness. Already read that. So the methods used by advertisers and politicians, TV networks, Hollywood, and other influencers, and that means social media influencers or anybody else out there that has the potential to influence large groups of people that are still in the bandwagon mind frame, still in an NPC mindset. This is what these people have sprung into popularity to do. I mean, it's seriously, anyway, to shape human thought and behavior often rely on psychological principles and sophisticated techniques. So the methods used by these people use psychological principles, which is a lot of this stuff, and some of it is kind of sophisticated. The way they combine certain things like the use of language with nudging and priming and repetition, induce some emotional stuff, induce a little cognitive dissonance, getting you wrestling back and forth with two different beliefs, anchor the whole concept of something in a certain frame of reference, and then, it's crazy. This shit can get quite sophisticated. So if you don't know, they can own your mind. And if I can control your mind, your ass will eventually follow. Period, paragraph, end of story. That's just the way it works. These methods can be subtle, indirect, or even unconscious, and they intend to influence attitudes, beliefs, and actions. Herein, we will delve into some of the tactics, techniques, and strategies the system uses at all levels of its operation to mind coitus you, to get past your conscious filters, to affect your subconscious decision-making processes and beliefs unbeknownst to you. And the very mere fact that they are doing all that they are doing so largely unbeknownst to you is a testament to their intentions, humans. They do not believe in the sovereignty and the autonomy of your mind. Okay, moving on. Now, to influence thought or belief, it's going to require different amounts of time and depth of influence. Depending on whether they're trying to manipulate your thought or belief, they may have to use rational versus emotional appeals, or hey, a combination of both, and a handful of others. So this is just kind of giving you a bit of a breakdown of what they're going to do and how they're going to approach manipulating you in an area that is more thought or idea based versus trying to peck at and shift something that you would consider to be a belief. And they also do this, as I've already tried to elaborate, using conscious direct manipulations or the unconscious, less or more subtle, less obvious methods to influence what you think or what you believe. There's an all-out war for the minds of humans, because think about it this way. Look at how you've seen the Democrats be able to rally themselves They're working for hearts and minds. They're working to influence what people believe and perceive. Then they can rabble-rouse them, get them all out on the streets, screaming, yelling, breaking things, or whatever it is they do, because they're not thinking for themselves. They're easily influenceable. They're easily manipulatable. They are functioning on beliefs, and they don't understand the strings that are connected to them. Those strings are being tugged on. This is so obvious. You could point it all out. But good luck getting the people who are being manipulated by these things to see it in themselves in the moment or any other thing. So I'm just putting this out there so people have some sort of a frame of reference for those that don't. So thought. Influencing thought tends to target immediate cognitive processes, like how we make decisions or evaluate things in the short term. And real quick, never forget, habits, opinions of the masses, ideas suggested, tastes formed. There's their intentions, humans. So the influence here is often less permanent and more situational. Examples of this might be advertising campaigns that persuade consumers to buy a product, or political propaganda that sways voters during an election period. These influences are designed to affect our thinking and behavior temporarily, capitalizing on current contexts or emotional states, generally fear or scarcity, things of that nature, to drive a specific action or decision. Belief. Influencing belief aims at deep-rooted convictions, often requiring longer-term engagement, thusly repeat, 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 and emotional investment. Beliefs are shaped over time and can be harder to change than immediate thoughts. Deeper, more enduring forms of influence aim to shape our long-term beliefs and values. This type of influence can be seen in education systems where the curriculum is designed not only to impart knowledge, but also to cultivate a set of values and ways of thinking that are expected to last throughout a person's lifetime. Similarly, cultural norms and values passed down through generations in families and communities work to mold our perceptions and behaviors on a more permanent basis. Well, they understand how this works, so they know how to whittle away at what beliefs we may have to shape them or to mold them to a belief that aligns with an agenda they have, a narrative they're pushing, or a way in which they want you to see the world, what they're doing, etc., etc. All the while, what's going on behind the scenes is going to generally be vastly different than the words that are coming out of their mouth. So, rational and emotional appeals. Influencing thought can focus on the rational, which will present information in a way that makes sense, reduces the cognitive load within the human's decision-making processes. Because it just makes sense or sounds rational is a reason why they'll do this. Or it leverages decision-making shortcuts, heuristics stuff. This is where they know how to hack the mind, if you will, and the decision-making processes of the human. So, however, it can be emotional, appealing to the feelings or values, effectively tugging on the emotional strings of their targeted audience to motivate action or change attitudes. Much of the time, when they're effective, they blend both rational and emotional together to engage and play on different aspects of human psychology. That's pretty insidious, considering they know that you don't know they're doing this to you. For instance, a public health campaign might use statistics about disease prevalence, rational appeal, alongside personal stories of those affected, obviously emotional appeal, to influence, entice, or encourage vaccination uptake through what amounts to fear-based propaganda, repeated influencing, and rhetoric. This is how and where they take advantage of those without knowledge. Beliefs are more often influenced through emotional appeal or social proof, as these core convictions are less malleable, and people like to hold on to their beliefs, or tend to, with a white-knuckle death grip. Once that belief gets root or takes hold in the human's mind, oh boy, good luck, mere mortal, getting through and changing that beliefs. But strangely enough, these bastards have figured it out, and this is what I'm showing it to you now. So this is because emotional appeals taps into the intuitive And wait a minute. Logic, less malleable than logic. Yes, this is because emotional appeal taps into the intuitive and often subconscious feelings that guide much of human behavior, while social proof leverages influence of others, bandwagon type stuff, suggesting that if many people believe in something, it must be credible or worthy of belief because other people believe it. So it must be true. In contrast to the emotional appeals, logical arguments require more deliberate thought, which can be less persuasive in changing someone's deeply held beliefs. Emotional appeal and social proofs attempt to bypass the analytical mind, again, the more subtle stuff, and resonate on a more visceral, that internal level, making them powerful tools in influencing someone's convictions and or actions. Conscious versus unconscious influence. Influencing thought often operates at a conscious level, engaging a person's active cognitive processes. However, it can also subtly permeate the subconscious. Influencing thought, did I word that wrong? What is it? Influencing thought often operates at a conscious level, engaging a person's active cognitive processing. Oh, active cognitive processes is the it. Active cognitive processes can also subtly permeate the subconscious, affecting decisions and opinions without the individual being fully aware of the influence. That's a problem for me. A dualistic approach that's particularly evident in areas like advertising, political campaigns, social media, and where messages are crafted to appeal to both the logical aspects of the mind and into the deeper, more emotional responses. When they're leveraging psychological principles that you're not aware of, like repetition, like social proof, like emotional appeals, influencers can effectively shape public perception and behavior. This manipulation of cognitive and emotional factors is crucial for creating compelling narratives that resonate with a wide audience. It's all mind coitusry. Beliefs. Influencing belief can work on both conscious and unconscious levels, often bypassing rational thought and tapping into deeper emotional social triggers. You can see this in the media, advertising, and where messages are crafted to resonate on a personal level, making them more effective and memorable. For instance, a commercial might use nostalgic imagery and music to evoke a sense of longing and familiarity, intending on influence purchasing decisions, intending on influencing purchasing decisions without the viewer intending on influencing the viewer's purchasing decisions without that'll work. Without the viewer, fully realizing why they feel compelled to buy a product. Political campaigns frequently use this strategy by aligning their messages and their values and fears of a target audience, intending to gain support through emotional engagement, rather than detailed and transparent policy discussion. They're trying to emotionally manipulate you, psychologically coitus you, rather than giving you detailed and transparency relevant to policies they want you to push by or they want your approval on. This method of influencing beliefs is powerful because it leverages the human tendency to make emotion decisions based on emotion rather than pure logic. This should start to give you a sense. This should start to reveal to you the lengths at which these people will go to manipulate every single solitary aspect of your mind and your beliefs, your perceptions, your opinions, your tastes. They're even going after your ideas, people. They're even going after your ideas. Okay, misinformation and disinformation both involve the spread of false or inaccurate information, but they differ in intent and context. Misinformation refers to the unintentional spread of false or inaccurate information. You know what? Hang on one second. Anyway, never mind. The person sharing misinformation typically believes it to be true, but they may unknowingly pass along incorrect details or misinterpret facts. It often happens when people share rumors, misunderstand news, or cite inaccurate sources. Disinformation, on the other hand, is deliberately fabricated and manipulated information spread with the intent to deceive, mislead, or manipulate others. And the biggest purveyors of that is the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the fucking government themselves, the media outlets, and all this other shit. And who's behind all of those? Oh, it starts to paint a quite clear picture that people don't want to see, unfortunately. This is typically done for political, financial, or social gain, and is often part of an intentional campaign to influence public opinion or behavior. Misinformation and disinformation are both dangerous, but disinformation is particularly harmful due to its intentional and manipulative nature. Both can affect people's decisions, sway public opinion, and have a lasting impact on social, political, and economic outcomes. It's important to remain critical and verify sources, whether consuming media, engaging in political discussions, or making personal choices based on information we encounter. Both misinformation and disinformation can have serious consequences from affecting public health. Had to add that in there. Public health, the COVID hoax and the vaccine propaganda, public health decisions, to influencing elections. But disinformation, I got to start that over. Both misinformation and disinformation can have serious consequences from affecting public health decisions to influencing elections. I should put in there, January 6th for that one or whatever. But disinformation is often more harmful due to its intentional nature. So with that said, pause it, read it. Pause it, read it. Pause it, read it. Pause it and read it. There you go. So, narrative framing. Narrative framing is essentially the process by which information is presented by the media, political leaders, social movements, and other influential entities to Hollywood stars, rap stars, pop stars, all that shit, to shape public perception and influence behavior. How much of that did we see over the last 5 years relevant to vaccines, political agendas, COVID hoax, lockdown, blah, blah, all these things, all these narratives? This method involves constructing a social phenomenon in a specific way that is intended to be absorbed by the audience. It's strategic presentation of a narrative that significantly impacts how the information is perceived and understood by its recipients. This technique is not just prevalent, but is a powerful tool in shaping thought and behavior across various platforms. And the news does it. They all do it. You can see it. You can see it from morning talk shows to the evening news. You can see it from politician to politician. I mean, look at the way the left is framing the whole narrative of what Doge is doing as it's revealing the corruption, the fraud, the waste, the just fuck you to the American people that our government has done to us since 1913, basically. They've been fucking us all since 1913. And that seems to be objectively true. And the evidence of that is going to be in what they're finding with this Doge stuff. And I'm not giving an opinion one way or another on the administration. This has been a government thing, left, right, doesn't matter. It's all been so horrible. So look at what the left is doing. For anybody that's paying attention and understands the absolute horrid depravity of what they've done, and that the left has been largely in control of, for instance, U.S. aid, look at how they're trying to frame it in this context, that Musk is this person trying to get all of our information, he's unqualified, yada, yada, yada. And whether you like the guy or not, from a factual perspective, he's got top secret clearance, he's friends kind of with the president of the United States. He's been vetted in more ways than you could imagine. You know, all the alphabet soups have probably done background checks on him and had a microscope up his proverbial butt. There's probably not much about him that they don't know, kind of thing. So I don't understand why they're framing it and why anybody would have a problem with what these people are doing relevant to Doge and For instance, USAID, Social Security, the IRS, and things like that. These are the places, spaces where the American people have all been getting fucked. Yet somehow the Democrats, through, I suppose, pulling the strings of belief, probably money makes people get out into the streets and cities all across the nation collectively. Wow, how does that happen? Money. So they're framing the narrative. It's a perfect case in point. These things that I'm showing you here, you can see this shit in play in your world today. Understanding the mechanics of narrative framing is crucial for recognizing potential manipulations laced within all of the messages conveyed through media and even their literature. By engaging in critical analysis of the storytelling methods and discerning, because they're telling you stories when they're giving you the news. They're telling you a story when they're presenting a lot of this stuff to you, the narratives that they're giving you about Ukraine, about Israel, about Gaza, about this, that, or the other thing. It's all storytelling methods. Think about that. By engaging in critical analysis, which a lot of human beings do not do, they don't use critical thought. Analysis of the storytelling methods and the discerning and discerning the intentions behind narrative structures, these things that they're presenting to the masses. People can become more discerning media consumers and independent thinkers. Okay, narrative framing. Narrative framing is essentially the process by which information is presented by the media, political leaders, social movements, and other influential entities to shape public perception and influence behavior. This method involves constructing a social phenomenon in a specific way that is intended to be absorbed by the audience. It's a strategic constructing of a social phenomenon, blah, 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 blah. Okay, narrative framing. Narrative framing is essentially the process by which information is presented by the media, political leaders, social movements, and other influential entities to shape public perception and influence behavior. This method involves constructing a social phenomenon in a specific way that is intended to be absorbed by the audience. It's a strategic presentation of a narrative that significantly impacts how information is perceived and understood by its recipients. The technique is not just prevalent, but it's a powerful tool in shaping thought and behavior across various platforms. And when you really understand narrative framing, I mean, just look at the last 5 years. Look at what the Democrats are doing to frame, as an example, what DOJ is doing, going through everything relevant to USAID, Social Security, IRS, and whatever else they're going to go through to reveal the fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption. Look at how the Democrats are framing that. Who's been at the helm of a lot of that corruption? A lot of the left. A lot of the left. So you can see examples of a lot of what I'm showing you here in the world today. It's just, I got a really rude awakening of how you can experience something so profoundly just simply because you lack the awareness and knowledge. And it's right in front of your face when I woke up to narcissism and realized that that's what I'd been experiencing all of my life, and I didn't have a language for it. Well, if you get uneasy or get an uneasy feeling when you're taking in media and you're listening to their bullshit, and you just can't nail down why, these are the reasons why. This is what they're doing to you. They're trying to affect you, basically. They're trying to remove your autonomy and your sovereignty relevant to your mind and all of that other stuff. So, where was I? Understanding the mechanics of narrative framing is necessary in order to recognize the manipulations within the messages conveyed through media and literature. Using critical thought and analyzing their storytelling methods and discerning the intentions behind the structures of their narratives, people can begin to see with more discerning eye as media consumers and independent thinkers. People can begin to see with a more discerning eye. This skill is necessary in an era where media is ubiquitous and narratives are almost always highly persuasive and pervasive because they put them out there everywhere. Narrative framing employs several techniques to mold public perception and influence behavior. This is what some of these techniques look like, and you can just pause it and read it, and then we'll go on to the next one. Okay, nudging. The obvious and not so obvious. Nudging involves subtly guiding choices. You could say influencing as well. You know what? In fact, subtly influencing choices without removing freedom of choice, often by presenting options in a way that makes a desired outcome more likely. Nudging refers to a concept in behavioral economics and psychology where subtle changes in the environment or presentation of choices influence people's behavior without restricting their options or significantly altering their incentives. Now, you really got to sit there and think about that. Influencing behavioral, psychological components of you in subtle ways by adjusting something in the environment or presenting choices in a way that influences you the way they want you to go, making something available that and removing other. It's crazy. The idea is that a small modification in the way choices are framed, presented, or structured can nudge people into making decisions that are in their best interest. And there would be those who are doing the nudging, not your best interest, the interest of those doing the nudging, or the desired interest without them realizing it. Nudging often works by appealing to cognitive biases or mental shortcuts, guiding people towards certain decisions without overt coercion. Nudging uses subtle and often non-intrusive techniques to influence behavior without limiting choices or imposing mandates. Okay, pause it and read it. Pause it and read it. Okay. Reciprocity. The principle of reciprocity is a deeply ingrained aspect of human psychology rooted in the innate desire to repay kindness or favors received. This tendency can be leveraged by various entities, including governments, politicians, Hollywood, and marketers, to influence behavior and decisions. By understanding and applying this principle, these groups can effectively manipulate outcomes to their advantage. The principle of reciprocity, which is a fundamental aspect of human behavior, can actually be exploited. See, they're exploiting the good aspects of human beings. Can actually be exploited by various entities like governments, politicians, advertisers, Hollywood, mainstream media due to the principle of deep roots in social interactions. This is part of our innate tribal bonding type function. They're hacking, so to speak, in a subtle sort of way. It's in the tendency to return a favor or repay kindness, and its exploitation is often subtle and more powerful than one might initially realize. Below are just some of the ways they work to manipulate this instinct for their own purposes. Pause it and read it. And when you start to understand the depth and scope of the way in which they do this, the lengths at which they go, I'm telling you, it just gives you this sick, sinking, cringe feeling in your stomach that they're that insidious. They'll stoop to no low, especially if you don't know about it. If you don't know about it, just like trolls, you can't see who they are, so they have no problems being what they are. Well, it's a similar thing with the people that are doing this to us, whether it's politicians, media, advertisers, or whatever. There's similar parallels, even though some of them are doing it to your face. They're doing it in a way where they know you don't know about it. So, repetition. I've explained repetition, and I want to show you something relevant to repetition. Now, just listen to what Mr. Holder says here.
Now, this is not going to be something that's very easy to do. We just have to be repetitive about this and just really brainwash people 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 into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
And then there's this little gem here.
Third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
I mean, Holder tells you, Bush Jr. tells you, and various other ones of these people have told you to your face. Propaganda, repeat, brainwashing, they make no bones about it. They don't have any problems hiding it at all whatsoever. So I just wanted to present that to you. These are 2 people who were, big people in this whole political propagandization mechanism that's been pumping us full of toxic bullshit. And one of the ways they do it is repetition. And those 2 men just gave you perfect examples of their intentions and how they use repetition. So let me get through this here. Repetition is a psychological principle that involves the repeated presentation of a message or stimulus to reinforce its impact and increase its likelihood of being internalized by the audience. By exposing people to the same information multiple times, advertisers, politicians, and media outlets capitalize on the mere exposure effect, a phenomenon in which people tend to develop a preference for things they encounter repeatedly. Repetition works by embedding an idea, product, or message in the subconscious mind, making it more familiar and, consequently, more persuasive. Whether it's through repeated slogans, jingles, logos, or catchphrases, repetition can make messages more memorable and can significantly influence decision-making, attitudes, and behavior. Repetition also creates a sense of reliability or truthfulness. If something is heard often enough, people tend to believe it or assume it's accurate, even without critically evaluating it. Repetition is a powerful tool in shaping perceptions, opinions, attitudes, and behaviors. The more frequently a message is repeated, the more likely it is to be accepted as true. Repetition can increase the familiarity and appeal of an idea, brand, or message simply because it is repeatedly encountered. Whether in advertising, political campaigns, retail, media, or even personal development, where you actually kind of want to do this stuff to yourself, repeated exposure to a message can reinforce its impact and increase the persuasive power. By leveraging the mere exposure effect, repetition makes ideas, products, and behaviors more familiar, accepting, and memorable. And don't forget, boys and girls, hold on. Tastes formed, ideas suggested, our minds molded. Yeah, they love you now, don't they, human? By leveraging the mere exposure effect, repetition makes ideas, products, and behaviors more familiar, acceptable, and memorable. While it's often subtle, repetition plays a central role in how people are influenced in everyday life. Repetition is a powerful tool in shaping beliefs and opinions. And just for the sake of it, did I close it? Nope, I didn't close it. There's this. I wanted to show you this. This book here. This is my Odyssey channel. But the book's title, Propaganda, and the subtitle, The Formation of Men's Attitudes. And it just kind of, now I'm not going to bore you with the book. You can go to my channel, and it's 350 pages almost. It's a long read, written the year after I was born. So it's a little dated. It's over 50 years old. As obvious, they knew back in 1928 when Edward Bernays wrote the book, Propaganda. This guy wrote a different book on propaganda. But the title itself kind of gives you a sense that it has to do with the formation of men's attitudes. So, anyway. Scarcity and urgency. Oh, wait a second. Let me go back to repetition. I don't think that I did the scroll and read it, pause it and read it. So I'm going to real quick. repetition, and possibly I didn't do that for reciprocity as well. So I guess I did, but just in case. Derp. Yep. Kind of a lot there. All right, scarcity and urgency. Scarcity and urgency are extremely useful tools in the arsenal of psychological and emotional triggers used by marketers, advertisers, politicians, and manipulators. Much like burglars that use covert type tools to do things in the shadows that no one but them would want them to do, the marketers, advertisers, politicians, and other manipulators use covert psychological tools to tap into fundamental human instincts and or fears. This kind of tactic has been significantly influencing consumer and even voter behavior for generations. When you educate yourself to a degree that allows you to understand these psychological and emotional techniques, you can see with a high degree of clarity what they're attempting to do to you and begin to make more informed decisions. If you don't know, or even worse, don't care, they can lead you like the Pied Piper led unsuspecting and unaware children, and they will influence you in ways you won't even perceive. This being just one of the many powerful psychological triggers that are commonly used against you. They are the persuasive tactics of deceivers and manipulators, levied upon the unsuspecting, the unaware, the ignorant, and the naive, to influence human behavior. These techniques play on basic human instincts and can significantly affect a human's decision-making processes. So, pause it and read it. Pause it and read it. Selective exposure. We can see that through the censorship, through social media, what do they call that? The moderation embedded into AI. They don't want you exposed to certain information because they don't want you to know. Because if you had the knowledge, then you'd be able to see what they're doing to you. Selective exposure shapes what people see, hear, and believe. It's the practice of presenting only a portion of the available information to the public, often with the intentions of shaping their perceptions, opinions, or beliefs. This tactic is a form of manipulation, as it denies the masses access to the complete picture, thereby limiting their ability to make informed decisions or form accurate opinions. The motivations behind selective exposure are clearly rooted in deception and a desire to influence the perception of the masses by willfully not exposing them to all of the information necessary to make informed decisions. What motivates them to do this? The shaping of public opinion to support a particular agenda or an ideology, influencing consumer and purchasing behavior, protecting their interests, protecting the interests of somebody. How many corrupt politicians have selectively not shown you or let the public know about certain things because it would reveal the level of corruption that they're engaged in right in front of our faces, but they know we can't recognize it for what it is. Maintaining the power or control over the narrative, avoiding controversy or criticism because of what they're doing. By selectively presenting information, media and propaganda outlets absolutely create a biased and skewed representation of reality, which is and has been detrimental to the public's understanding of the truth. The range of negative consequences are too numerous to itemize them all. But look at what you get when you get people who are misinformed by selective exposure, who have not gone out on their own quest and journey to find the truth through other avenues, means, and ways for themselves. Selective exposure as a tactic of manipulation against unsuspecting population grossly crosses ethical and moral boundaries. When the masses are unaware of the psychological tactics being used on them, they are vulnerable to the exploitation and manipulation. This undermines the principles of informed consent, autonomy, and democracy, as people are not able to make informed decisions or participate fully in the democratic process. If we don't know because they're holding back information, think about it. And the elections are a perfect case in point. They tell us what they want us to hear. We don't know who the fuck these people are. And then we vote for them. And then they're in power for 4 years. Using selective exposure can also perpetuate existing power imbalances and social inequalities if they control the narrative and limit access to information. Those in positions of power can maintain their dominance and influence over the masses. Clearly, the motivations behind selective exposure are rooted in a desire to deceive, misinform, exert control over the narrative, and shape public opinion to serve the interests of those in power. This tactic is fundamentally at odds with the principles of transparency, accountability, and democratic participation, and can have far-reaching and detrimental consequences for the people within the society being manipulated and lied to by those they've been convinced they should trust. And pause it and read it. Pause it. Whoops, pause it. Come on. Pause it and read it. Pause it and read it. Pause it and read it. And there you go. So, selective exposure. Now on to social proof. Social proof is a psychological phenomenon. Sorry, something distracted me in the corner of my eye. Where people mimic the actions of others in an attempt to undertake behavior in a given situation. A little bit of bandwagon, a little bit of sheepishness, kind of combined all into one. This concept is crucial in understanding how businesses, marketers, and even social leaders can influence public behavior. Below are the various techniques of social proof that are used to manipulate human thought and actions. Pause it and read it. Pause it and read it. Okay. Subliminal messaging. Subliminal messaging is the use of influential stimuli, for example, images, sounds, or words, that are presented below the threshold of conscious awareness and perception, embedded in visual or auditory media, and used to influence behavior or attitudes towards a particular thing. Used to influence people, thoughts, behaviors, and attitudes without their realizations of it. Yeah, that just looked funny to me. Used to influence people's thoughts, behaviors, or attitudes without their realization of it. The intention is to affect the subconscious mind, imperceptibly nudging people to make decisions or adopt beliefs that they might not otherwise consciously choose. The intention behind subliminal messaging is that while people may not consciously register these messages, their subconscious minds may still process and respond to them because they're slipping it in past the subconscious filter or the conscious filters, and everything presented to the subconscious mind it accepts because it doesn't have the ability to discern. It depends on your conscious mind to do the discerning. So if it makes it through the conscious filters into the subconscious mind, it's going to have an effect. That's why they do it. Subliminal messages are generally used in advertising, media, and political campaigns. This is important because this is power. Political campaigns, this is power, the distribution of power amongst those people who are, quote unquote, ruling over us. And if they're using underhanded tactics like subliminal messaging to influence the minds of their population, that's insidious at best. They intend on bypassing your conscious mind and directly affecting your subconscious, and they know these messages can and do alter behavior without being detected by their target audience. That's completely insidious, unethical, immoral, and crosses all the boundaries of trust. Pause it and read it. Advertising, media and movies, political campaigns, consumer behavior and retail, online media and digital advertising. There you go. And then last but not least, the use of language. Sweet words, wordsmithery, split tongue stuff. The use of language is a powerful tool in influencing human thought, perception, and behavior. The way language is used can subtly, yet profoundly shape how we receive and interpret ideas, perceive reality, and make decisions. Advertisers, politicians, the media, and various groups within or with a desire and the intention to influence use specific techniques in language to frame issues, manipulate emotions, and guide responses. The use of language is a highly effective tool for influencing thought, emotion, and behavior. Whether through advertising, media reporting, political disclosure, I said political disclosure. I think I'm starting to get a little punchy with this reading. Political discourse or propaganda, the way words are chosen, framed, and repeated shapes how we perceive the messages we are given and even the world around us. Understanding the power of language allows people to critically assess the messages they encounter daily, whether in the media, on social media, or in marketing campaigns, and make more informed decisions about the information they accept or reject. Language isn't just about the words we use, but also about how those words are structured, how they invoke emotions, and how they create associations. Language can be used to create certain connotations or associations, influencing attitudes and perceptions without the audience even realizing it. Specific words or phrases can invoke different responses, emotional responses, and can subtly influence thoughts and beliefs. Throw out the word anti-Semite, throw out the word racist, throw out the word whatever socially used word to try to demean people, this, that, or the other. Just the use of that language can, for the unaware, for those who do not realize this is going on, which is a substantial portion of the masses, these words and phrases evoke emotional responses that influence these people's thoughts. They don't, and what they believe. Wow, this is too easy for them because they possess the knowledge of how you operate that you don't. Using the term freedom fighters versus terrorists to describe the same group, depending on the desired perception, is one way to influence another's perception. And it's just using different language, using different words that have different contexts. To give you just one light example of how the use of language can be manipulated to affect the human perception or the perception of the unaware masses. This manipulation of language is a powerful tool for shaping public opinion and political narratives. By choosing words that carry positive connotations, such as freedom fighters, a group can be portrayed as heroic and just, fighting for noble causes. Conversely, labeling them as terrorists suggests they are unlawful, violent, and a threat to society. This dichotomy not only affects how people perceive these groups, but also influences international relations and policy discussions. I mean, think about it. They just classified the cartels in Mexico as terrorists. So that changes international relations and policies about this stuff, since they're now classified as terrorist groups. It's just an example. Media outlets, governments, and influential figures often leverage this tactic to sway public sentiment, rally support, and justify actions against such groups. Meaning the terrorists, the terrorists, or hey, the freedom fighters. So here's some examples of how they use language and frame things and do things. Advertising, politics, media, psychological manipulation and persuasion, corporate business and communication, social influence, and persuasion. So, duplicitous use of applied linguistics. Applied linguistics traditionally seen as a tool for understanding and improving the ways in which languages are taught, learned, and used, can sometimes be wielded in less straightforward or even duplicitous ways. This might be some of the more advanced stuff. There are various facets of how applied linguistics can be used to manipulate, persuade, and control in various contexts, from politics to marketing. The duplicitous use of applied linguistics by those with the power to influence is quite unethical and immoral when used upon an unsuspecting population. It challenges the integrity of communication and opens the door to misinformation, misunderstandings, and societal division. The versatility of applied linguistics also opens avenues for its use in manipulative contexts. Below are some sectors where the tactics are notably applied. And naturally, politics, advertising, marketing, it's like pillars, media. Look at it. It's just sad. Anyway, and then last but not least, I think, at least on this, is neurolinguistic programming and the duplicitous use of double entendre. And this is the more sophisticated stuff, some of the more sophisticated usages of language. And double entendre, that's kind of a big one, where there's two connotations to something that they're saying. So the use of language can also play a key role in more specific psychological manipulation and persuasive techniques, such as neurolinguistic programming, and the use of duplicitous double entendres. These techniques often rely on the subtle ways language is used to influence people's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without them being fully aware of it. Here is a breakdown to clarify how NLP and duplicitous double entendre work as examples of manipulative use of language. NLP is a set of techniques and strategies used to influence and communicate with people more effectively. When used with duplicitous intentions, NLP can be employed to manipulate people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without their conscious awareness. NLP techniques often focus on changing an individual's response to certain stimuli, often through language patterns, visualization, and behavioral modeling. Some possible reasons behind the duplicitous use of NLP: covert persuasion. There's an awful lot of that going on around here. Emotional manipulation, subtle suggestions. So, and then when you get real deep into it, you look at it, pause it and read it. Yep, kind of a lot involved in that. Okay, so I think that concludes part 3. And part 4 is going to include, wait a second. Okay, hang on a second. Plus. So, we've gone through the main thought. We've gone through why should I care about this. We've gone through the techniques to manipulate the human thought perception without your knowledge. And we have gone through both sides with the pause and read it and scroll through as well. So that should be done. So basically, next in part 4, we're going to cover cognition, consciousness, and awareness influencing the cognitive elements of humans, and probably US patent 6506-148B2, because that's kind of another way in which they influence and manipulate you and your thinking. It's crazy what they can do with this stuff. So that's it for now. Take care, everyone.